Hello again. Welcome to another episode of Leading from Alignment with our good friend John Opalewski. How are you today, John?
Hey Jim, I'm doing good. It's good to be with
Good.
you. Always a joy to spend time catching up with each other, encouraging each
Right.
other, and sometimes laughing at each other.
Yeah.
Just
If you can't laugh at your friends, you better not laugh at your enemies, right? So
right.
you can't laugh with your friends or at them. Good, good. So we are in the midst of summer. I know we're coming
Yeah.
up soon on our 200th episode, and we're going to be talking about that a little bit next week. But today, what's on your heart? What's on your mind for the people that are listening today?
Yeah, episode 195 today. Jim, this is maybe one of the most practical pods
Hmm.
we've ever recorded.
Yeah.
We entitled it, So You Have a New Team Member, Now What?
Now what?
You and I have spent a lot of time on the podcast over the last 3 years, more than 3 years now, talking about this idea of releasing people versus recruiting people.
Yes. Yeah.
And I wonder, Jim, could you just give us like the 3-minute
Three
overview of that,
minutes. Great. Yeah.
and help us? Because then what I'd like to do is remind people of that, and then here's kind of a next step
Right
once
on.
that process is successful and we get somebody released
Yeah.
properly, then what do we do with them? That's where I'd like to focus this
Right
podcast
on.
on.
So Ephesians 2:10 says we are God's workmanship. We're created in Christ Jesus to do good works that God prepared in advance for us to do. I think that's a little known or little appreciated truth in the average pastor's mind. When we're thinking about how do we get people to work the nursery, we're thinking who has a volunteer's heart, who has a clean record, you know,
Yeah,
who will say yes to my request. And we all know that there are a handful of people that do the vast majority of serving in the local church. And it just isn't a biblical concept. Only 20% of us would have a ministry and 80% of us would show up, but that's pretty normal. So as we look at this, there are things that God has given to every individual that are uniquely theirs. They have a passion that's a clue. There's a pain that's a clue to that purpose. And there's a proficiency. And we've done teaching on this, go back and look at it. But passion, pain, proficiency, producing three circles that overlap like an Olympic flag, you'll see that there's a place where all three of those touch. And that's where we draw the X and we call it the sweet spot. And if you can help somebody discover what their sweet spot is, and then utilize them or release them in the local church, not to do something you need them to do, but to be something that God created them to be, it
yeah,
completely flips the script. So every pastor knows this. The nursery worker, the head of the nursery comes up and says, we need more workers. It happens every Sunday in almost every church all over our country, maybe all over the world. And so the bulletin announcement goes out, and then the pulpit announcement goes out, and then there's the sermon series on serving in your local church. And really, what we're trying to do is find three people that we can get into that room, because the two people that are there every week are tired of being in that room every week. They're looking for a way out, and eventually they'll burn out and they'll quit, and then we have real problems. So instead of the bulletin announcements, what if we just invited people to coffee and we asked them, what's your passion, what's your pain, what's your proficiency? And if, because I believe God sends the right people to the right places at the right time, we discover someone who goes, I just really love babies. You can say, really, what's your pain? Just there's not enough men in children's lives, and as a man, I'd love to be involved in kids' lives at a deeper level. What's your proficiency? I don't know. I really love kids though. So it's an obvious thing now. So here's last thing I had to say on this. If you do get people from recruiting them to go work in the ministry so that your ministry can grow, in a way, they would kind of have a claim of, I got used by my local church. I'm being not utilized, used. We all
yeah,
we Everybody that leaves your church that goes to another church that was involved goes, I just got burned out. I just got overused. I just need to sit in the back pew. But what if we flipped the script and we discovered them and we released them to be who they are? Um, all of a sudden, instead of you owing them a favor because they volunteered, they owe you a favor because you're one of the five people that changed their life and discovered them. And these are by far the best workers you will ever have. They show up early. They want to learn how to pray because they love the people they're serving. They want to learn the word because they want to teach it well. All of a sudden, all the Christian disciplines make sense. So I think that was about 3 minutes, but that's
yeah.
that's
That's
the thought
very
on
good.
this.
I'm impressed
Yeah.
by you being able to do that in 3 minutes. Um, and it's such a powerful way to approach building teams.
Yeah.
And yet I wonder what happens to some folks that have found their why, they've found their purpose, and they're released
Yep.
into it.
Yeah.
And the onboarding process leaves
Yeah.
something to be desired. And so I'd like to talk about the
Yeah.
onboarding. So this is after
Great.
we have success, getting them in the
Yeah.
right spot,
Yeah.
doing the right things. Um, what happens after that occurs? I believe this, Jim,
Yeah.
the first 30 days on a new team are the most important 30 days in that person's
Absolutely.
experience with you or
Yeah.
whoever is leading the team they're on. I think the
Absolutely.
first 30 days are highly important. A couple of baselines with this, the onboarding process, which we're going to describe today. Your onboarding process should be flawless.
Yes.
You
Yes,
have
please.
100% control over the onboarding process.
Yeah.
There's no excuse. The
Yeah.
only excuse you could have is you don't know how to do it. But if you're listening or watching today, we
Yep.
hope that by the time we're finished, you'll know how to. And
Yeah.
then that excuse is removed. And
Yeah.
so that's the first baseline. Second baseline is this, that intentionality wins. Um, you know, and I would say take good notes today. We have show
Yeah.
notes.
Yeah.
Print those show notes off and keep them somewhere where you're going to see them,
Yeah.
so that you remember to execute what we're going to lay out for you today consistently. So, Jim, that's
Yeah.
kind of like foundationally where I'd like to leap off
Right
into.
on. Yeah. Jump.
Okay, so let us share the system with you. 7 pieces to it. It's wow, 7 pieces. That might sound like a lot. It really isn't. Here's the first thing that we think would be a good idea once you've released somebody into their God-given why, and that is to review with them the ministry description.
Yes. Yes.
Here's Here are the outcomes we're looking for.
Yeah.
Here are some of the minimum qualifications.
Yeah.
Here's what you do when you don't know what to do.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
it's a half pager, maybe
Yep.
3/4 of a pager, description of the role and the expectations therein. If you don't have a description, write one.
Yes.
Don't know how to write a description, give us a call and
Yeah.
uh, we'll help you. So that would be the first thing. Just sit down with
First
that
thing.
new individual and say, here's what this role looks like. Here's what it
Yes.
requires. Here's one thing I think is really a good idea there too, Jim, is to give them an idea of how many hours in a month
Yeah.
this role is going to take.
Yep.
Just so they have there's no confusion over what you're asking them to commit to.
Yeah.
So that's the first one. Second one,
Yep.
get the new team member what they need to serve. Now
Yes.
that sounds like a well duh statement, doesn't it? But
But
I'm
but
surprised.
people may be surprised how frustrating these volunteers are when they walk into the room and the sound system doesn't work, and and they don't know how to communicate. And so, no, I keep talking. This is very common.
Yeah. So let's use children's ministry for an
Yeah.
example. So some of the necessary items that you're probably going to need, like some sort of identifier, right? That you're part of the children's ministry,
Yeah.
whether it's
Yeah.
a t-shirt or a lanyard, or keys to the room or the way to get into the room. Uh, these are good
Yeah.
indicators that you're part of the team, right?
Yeah.
If here's how you turn on the soundboard. Uh,
Yeah.
if some churches use uh, software to schedule, and
Yeah.
planning center is, and we're not advocating planning center, but that's one I'm
Yeah.
familiar with,
Yeah. We
and
use it.
and it would be really nice if they had their login
Yeah.
to planning center and they knew how to use it, and so think about what does this person need to be successful just from the practical
Right.
items, and make sure they have them.
Yes.
One of my brother-in-laws, just a swell guy. I love him so much. He took a new job. He's a retired cop, and
Mm.
just a great guy. Loves the Lord. And he wanted something to do after retirement, so he's working a part-time job. And I remember him telling me, Jim, that the first week he didn't have a desk, he didn't have any electronic device to do any, he didn't know what to do for a week. And
Yeah.
I, I just felt the anguish, that
Yeah.
he was going through. And I don't think anybody who's watching or listening today thinks that's a good idea, right? That they see
No.
the folly of that. Um, Maybe sometimes we do that to people who land on one of our teams.
Yeah.
And for the first week, 2 weeks, 3 weeks, or maybe never, they don't have the tools they need to be successful.
Right.
So that's the second piece of
Yeah.
uh, this system. And Jim, you
Yeah.
can jump in anytime you want. Here's a third one, and I'm very interested in your thoughts on this third piece.
Yeah.
We think that it's a good idea in this onboarding process to job shadow. So
Hmm.
this new person on a team, uh, have them job shadow a couple of times with the best person on that team,
Yes. Yeah.
the highest performer. And we want your new teammates to learn from the best leaders,
Yes.
the best workers. What do you think about the job shadowing piece of this, Jim?
I, it's funny, and I don't want to. This will be 30 seconds, but I could ramble on it for days. Discipleship is not exclusively educational, indoctrinational classroom work. Discipleship is people. It's follow me, and I'll make you. But I would say the best place to disciple a new convert or someone that is just wanting to grow in their faith is exactly the environment that you just described. So that the mature, the leader, the servant, the person you want 10 more of should be the
Yes.
person teaching those who are coming in. And because their life will model beyond their doctrinal words, their marriage, their kids, their generosity, their faith will model so well. So if somebody just got saved last Sunday, but they have a great heart, obviously you can't put them in charge of something. And most likely they don't want to go to a class to be taught this is the Bible, this is prayer, this is fasting. But if you can get them involved in somebody's life who lives that lifestyle, they are just as disciples learn from Jesus. They'll be learning from their rabbi, from their teacher. So I think that discipling in the community of service is underrated and one of the greatest opportunities we have to truly disciple people because it's in their gift, it's in their interest. So 100% shadowing, discipling, being covered in the dust of your rabbi, whatever you want to call it, man.
Mhm.
That is it.
Yeah. So get a good ministry description. If you don't
Yep.
have it, reach out for help.
Yep.
Get them the tools they need. Get them with your best people and
Yep.
let them shadow the role a few times. Here's the fourth thing that I think we miss, fourth part of this, and that is to provide some basic training. You
Yeah.
know, so let's use children's ministry so easy. It's so right for the picking. So
Yeah.
here's a couple things. If you're releasing somebody that loves kids onto your team, give them a written checklist where that applies, right? Like
Yeah.
if here's the 10 things you got to make sure happen
Yeah.
um, to complete your hour with these kids. Talk about what if scenarios.
Yeah.
Like if a child is unruly in children's church, here's what we do.
Yeah.
If a parent asks you a question you don't know, this is what we do.
Yeah.
Here's how we sign children in. Here's how we
Yeah.
release children
Yeah.
to their parents. Uh, you know, Ushers. Let's pick on ushers here for a minute. Here's how we handle an unruly adult in
Yeah.
in,
Right.
in service. Here's how we handle medical emergencies. This is what we're going to do. So if a medical emergency happens, boom, 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 boom. Um, Give them this baseline training. It's almost like, I don't
Yeah.
know what the right terminology is to describe it, but it's just like quick hitting. Here's the fundamentals. Here's some of the
Yeah.
scenarios that we've experienced more than once,
Yeah.
and here's how we handle them if they occur. What do you think about that one?
Yeah. When God talks to Moses and says, I want you to go to Pharaoh, this is what you're born for. I've been preparing you for 80 years. Here we go. You ready? Your market set. And Moses goes, but what if they ask me a question I can't answer? What's your name? What if they think I'm nuts for doing it? So I think helping people fill in the what if questions so
Yeah.
that they feel confident to walk into the situations that we're putting them in, I think is very helpful. It's what's funny is one answer is good for just about every question that you don't feel qualified to answer. It's just call the office, talk to the pastor, right? Because we can, as a servant in the church, we can always appeal to authority above us if we're not comfortable. But here's, like you're saying, this unruly person in service stands up, starts protesting something. What are we going to
Yeah.
do? There should be a protocol for that because as we learned in children's ministry, so it is in adult ministry. If we don't have a wonderful program prepared for them, they have a wonderful program prepared for us. And so we need to be ready. And I think too, it adds purpose now that ushers looking in a different way. They're not just there to collect the
Yeah.
money and go stand in the foyer and talk about the ball game. They
Right.
recognize they have a responsibility. They're serving. They're a shepherd. We're by giving
Mhm.
people more responsibility, we're telling them in essence, you are more responsible. We trust you at this level. So
Yeah.
you're not burdening people. You're giving them purpose and meaning, and I think that's really important.
Here's a fifth point or fifth
Yeah,
component of great onboarding process, and that's introducing the new team member to the rest of the team.
yeah.
I'm a little shocked at how often this gets missed.
I keep
You
laughing
know,
because we both know stories, right, of the person that
Mhm.
this isn't theory. This is testimony that we're sharing today. Yeah,
Right. Like I think we make an assumption that the team members know each other.
yeah,
The larger your church, the more that's not true.
yeah,
And
yeah,
uh, and so make sure that they learn and are introduced to the existing team.
yeah,
Here's a sixth piece.
yeah,
We talked about job shadowing. I would make a little marker in your calendar that you're going to follow up with the person who was being shadowed
yes,
to see how's this fit?
yeah,
How's it going? And if they say, hey, it's a good fit, man, you're off to a great start, right?
yeah, yeah,
If they see some warning flags with this new teammate, it might
yeah,
require revisiting the three circles conversation
yeah,
um,
yeah,
with that new team member to determine, what's going on. Is it did we
right,
miss something in that series of
yeah,
conversations, or
yes,
is there something that just with the onboarding that isn't registering or connecting to you? But I like this idea of circling back and checking with that person, we call them a
yeah,
trainer, maybe say,
yeah,
how is Joe doing from your perspective?
yeah,
Um, and then one more here is to follow up with that new team member.
yeah,
So I like this 30-day idea. So maybe after
yeah,
30 to 45 days or whatever, if they've had a couple of shots at serving,
yeah,
I'd like to ask them, hey, what do you see that we might be able to do better?
right,
There's
right,
great power in a fresh set of eyes.
yes, yeah, I agree.
We are often blind to things a new person sees
Yeah,
immediately. And
yep,
this is true on every level of life. We used to live up in the northern part of the Lower Peninsula, and we would come down, Jim, out of our subdivision to the Grand Traverse Bay. Beautiful, beautiful water.
yeah, yeah,
Um, and after about 3 months of that, it just kind of lost its luster. Like I got used to
yeah,
it,
yeah,
and I
yeah,
didn't notice it as much. And what happens? There's a term for it. It's called eye fatigue.
yeah,
And I think we get eye fatigue on our teams sometimes.
yeah,
So what a great way to get better as a team, as a ministry, to ask some of the new folks, what do you see?
yeah,
What are you noticing? Um,
yeah,
and there's a little bit of risk associated with that, right? They might give you an outlandish idea that you're not going
yeah,
to implement. But that's all right. I think more
right,
often than not, you're going to get some good feedback, and it will help you make children's ministry, nursery ministry, small groups, you name it,
yeah,
better and
yes,
more productive. So Jim, it's just this
yeah,
like 7-step simple thing that I think if we did this on a regular basis, here's a couple things I think would happen. I think we would have more longevity on our teams.
Yes. Yeah.
Somebody who's frustrated in their first 30 days on a new team is really hard to have the three circles conversation with again,
Yeah. Yeah.
because they say, well, you know what? Been down this path. It was a bad experience.
Yeah.
I'm not sure I want to do that again.
Yes. A lot
What
of
do you
that.
what do you think about that part of it, Jim?
Yeah. When we say, hey, we'd love to have you be a part of our church, we want you to take that next step to serving, and then they have a bad experience. It like you're saying, that it not only harms that circumstance, it potentially harms future circumstances, because
Mm,
what they wanted is not who I am. Or I would have served in the worship team, but that old lady with the key to the organ just thinks she's God. I mean, she's miserable to be around. And we will learn a lot from the people that join our teams, because like you're saying, the fresh eyes, creating a great experience. And again, if the devil wants to interrupt, if he can't stop our salvation, then what would be next? He wants to stop our fruitfulness. So
yeah,
this is that point where you become you, which is truly one of the most satisfying. I mean, one of the most satisfying things we can ever experience is being who God made us to be in a fruitful way. So if he couldn't have stopped your salvation, this is what we're going to try next, because the last thing he wants is for David to know he's a giant killer, Moses to know that he's a deliverer. He doesn't want him to know those things. He wants him to think he's some young kid, some guy that's a murderer that ran away.
yeah,
So for us to say we believe God has something great for you, that you're created for such a time as this, that the works were prepared in advance for you to do. You're the right thing at the right place at the right time, and then they go and have a bad experience, is
yeah,
an abortive act that we are responsible for, and to make sure it does not happen. I
yeah.
Somebody said this a long time ago. Winning the backdoor war, and I forget the guy's name, but he used a phrase. Jonathan Gainsborough. He used the phrase: "If people don't belong before too long, they say so long."
Yeah,
And so they're asking, can I be a part of the inner workings of this? I want to belong. And if they can't, that doesn't fit, it doesn't work, and we don't know it. One of these days we'll say, whatever happened to Fred? He and Wilma
right.
used to attend, and they got involved in kids ministry, and we never saw him again. And I think every pastor knows that story. They've heard it, they've seen it.
Yeah.
And this is the reason why some of the time.
And do you think, Ephesians 2:10, God prepared these works in advance, right?
Yeah, yeah,
What would it be like if we prepared a process in advance?
yes, yeah,
There's something wonderfully value added when it says God prepared these in advance.
yeah, yeah, yeah,
It makes me feel loved. It makes me feel thought about. It makes me feel cared for. It
yeah,
makes me feel like there's real eternal purpose to this.
yeah,
And I know it's not apples to apples, but the thought process to me is similar. That, not only does God have good works prepared in advance for you, but boy, we have a process that we've thought through,
yeah,
we've tested, we've test driven this, we've
yeah,
learned, we've made improvements to it, and you're going
yeah,
to have an amazing onboarding experience in this particular. I just think there is so much to be gained
yeah.
by doing this well. I think first impressions matter,
Hmm.
and they set a tone. And I think it's never easier to influence a new team member's behavior than when they are a blank slate
Yeah,
and eager to learn and
yeah,
change. You have
yeah,
an opportunity in those first 30 days to make an
yeah,
indelible imprint on this individual that's on your team. And you might say, well, gosh, that
yeah.
sounds almost like you're bloviating or you're making a bigger deal of this than really
Mm-mm.
should be. I just want to say categorically, I don't believe we're making big enough deal about
No,
this.
right, right.
So,
Yeah,
pastor, leader, um, yes, learn the three circles, learn how to get
yeah,
comfortable with that conversation, learn the power of releasing. But
yeah,
please, please, please follow
right.
that up with a flawless
Yeah,
process to get those people off to a great
yeah,
start.
yeah. I have maybe a closing thought, John. Is if
All right.
those are watching, I'm talking about the height of a pyramid and the base of a pyramid. we all get excited when this number of people attend, but we ignore the fact that this number of people, this tall height of this pyramid, is sustained by the base of the pyramid. The base, those who are in the base, those who are your core, those who serve on a regular basis, they predetermine the size of your congregation.
Right.
So somebody say, I don't have time for this. I've got to do these other things. My church is growing. It's like, not for long. If you have ministry for 100 people, you will soon have 100 people. Now, you may have 50 today, or you may have 300 today, but you'll soon have 100 people based upon that base of people that bring ministry with them, that have been released properly, that have been followed up on, that got a job description. We get all excited about Easter, and I'm excited about it too. There's nothing wrong with the big number days, right? But why is that the one time a year? I think Easter should set a high water mark for the following year. Today's Easter should be next year's average. We learned a lot about how to handle that many people. We learn what we need. We learn what we need to release people. We know we need to shift people over, and we needed extra services, whatever it was. There's no reason why, if you continue to build that base of ministry, that God will not provide people that need it.
Yeah.
That is ministry. It's leading people to do the works that God created them to do. So I agree completely. So, and I would say this too, as you're listening and watching, this may seem overwhelming. It's not. I know we do this from time to time, John. If somebody wanted to get a hold of you and have a conversation about this or anything else, how would they go about doing that?
Yeah, they reach out to us via our website, convergecoach.com, and there is a contact us link, and you will get 30 minutes with one of our teammates. Might not be me, it might be me, just depends on the queue and who's in the queue and that, but you'll get 30 minutes with no obligation. And we might be able to help you in 30 minutes, and that's all the help you need. But if you need more help, we're available.
Right. So we believe in you. We love you. We care about you. We know that you have dreams. And today's episode was about helping you understand how to see those dreams come to pass. If you're, my pastor back in Phoenix used to say, soul winning is the solution to every problem. Just keep leading people to Jesus. And that's not a salvation experience. Leading people to Jesus is leading them to the Jesus who believes in them and releasing them in meaningful ways. So if we can help you in any way, shape, or form, that in many ways is the greatest payday we get to enjoy, is watching leaders thrive. So I feel like Jerry Maguire, but help us help you, in this. And we will continue as we head up in this next week. You want to tell us about the next 5 episodes, John? Is there a quick teaser for the next 5?
Sure. Yeah, we're coming up on episode 200. I can't believe 200, Jim. That's just a big number. And so we are going to intro the top 5 most watched and listened to podcasts over the last 3.5 years. And we'll be counting them down. We'll be recording a fresh intro to all of them and just queuing up the session. But these are the ones that listeners and watchers said we love the most. And we over the next several weeks, we want to share those with you again. And so that's what we're going to be doing all the way through episode 200.
Love it. Remember Casey Kasem's top 40 countdown? That's what this is. You got to be 45 years old or older. And most of it was disco when I first started listening. But we promise you there'll be no disco. Neither one of us will be wearing spandex pants. And you'll enjoy every episode. So God bless you. We're praying for you. It's Tuesday and you haven't quit. You continue. Just keep pressing on as you continue to lead from alignment.